allow the stream to propagate to several platforms, we usually give a chance to people to connect, and we double check that everything is good on the software side. As I mentioned, we go live on LinkedIn, we go live on YouTube, as well as Twitch and Facebook. We monitor LinkedIn and YouTube a lot more than the other two. But as me and Dave mentioned last week, we had some thoughts about there might be interesting people and conversations on the other two platforms. And so I think there's certainly audiences on Twitch. Surprisingly, out of all places, there's a lot of like software and cybersecurity professionals that do development of software in the traditional sense, but not a lot of manufacturing. So I think there's maybe a missed opportunity. But in any case, as people connect, it looks like we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and so I'll let Dave introduce us as well as any other notes and points you might have.
Absolutely, and Aaron, my favorite part of this intro is where I get to embarrass Vlad. Now, yeah, you probably know, Aaron. I know most people probably watching this know Vlad has a YouTube channel where he does tutorials and all of these other things, and they're about to hit 27,000 subscribers. And so, because Vlad will not ask for people to subscribe to the Solus PLC YouTube, I will ask for people to subscribe to the Solus PLC YouTube, if only so we can eventually at some point get that silver play button over Vlad's right shoulder. And I can actually then stop asking people to subscribe to Vlad and Solus PLC.
Thanks, Dave.
But no, it's a great channel. Yes, you guys should subscribe. As Vlad mentioned, we are streaming, so hey to the dozen or 24 folks currently watching us on Solus, thanks for being here. In addition to that, if you like this show and want to watch more clips of all of the last dozen or 24 episodes, you guys can check us out. We have a Manufacturing Hub YouTube channel in which we post all of the clips and all of the post-edited everything. We will go ahead and drop links in the LinkedIn chat for all of those. With that, we want to thank Opto22 for sponsoring the Evolution of Control Systems theme and remind everyone that we're giving away a Groove Rio. And after the 72nd time of saying that, I have actually now gotten Groove in front of the word Rio as opposed to the last 7 years of my life. But we're giving away a Groove Rio. It's very exciting. Vlad will do the Vanna White thing and point to the Groove Rio above his head. And so you guys can go ahead and check that out. We are on manufacturinghub.live, and you guys can go ahead and enter, join the newsletter, get all of the up-to-date information on when we're going live and the latest podcasts that have come out. But no, beyond that, if you guys are on LinkedIn, please be sure to follow the Manufacturing Hub page. We just cracked 500 followers, which is pretty awesome. And the more you guys like and follow, the more it helps the algorithm. And I think at the end of the day, we are all slaves to the algorithm. But no, with that, do you have any other thoughts before we go live, Vlad?
No, I think it was great.
Fantastic. Everyone, welcome to episode 45 of Manufacturing Hub with me, Dave, and this guy up here, Vlad. We have a very special guest, Aaron Prather, on. And Aaron, I'm going to point out that if you're watching this live, they will probably see like little robot-looking things buzzing around behind your head as they are right now. And don't be alarmed, you're not having some sort of stroke. There are actual robots buzzing around, and that is one of the like 20,000 amazing things Aaron gets to do with FedEx. And so, Aaron, I guess first, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for having me. Been a long day here in the lab, but I'm ready to talk shop and get some questions from the audience, and let's get this thing rolling.
No, absolutely. Really
Fantastic.
Appreciate your time, Aaron. Maybe to kick us off, if you want to give us some more of your background for those who are not connected with you currently on LinkedIn and are wondering what it is that you do that involves robots driving around on the back.
Thanks, Vlad, for that. Aaron Prather. I'm the Senior Technical Advisor for FedEx Express for the Technology Research and Planning team. That's a fancy way of saying R&D. But my team takes care of, we look at the technology that is the next wave that is going to be entering the enterprise. And here at our facility here in Memphis, Tennessee, we actually test some of those, and actually, yeah, you see some of them running around right now behind me. We're always running tests out here. We actually have a big interoperability test that we're going to show the world next week from this facility with a lot of our vendor partners, that we're ready to really just show off of what robotics is capable of doing. And I think we'll stop there. I know we're going to get into a lot of more other things that my team works on, but yeah, just for the audience, there's robots
Yep.
running around because that's what we do. That's our job. I mean, we make these things work and get them out into our team members' hands so they can help deliver packages.
And Aaron, if I may ask, going back in time, how did you get into automation, control systems, and just, I would say, your current role on FedEx? What led you to be on this path?
Yeah, I mean, I started with FedEx 26 years ago. Not to date myself too much, I was a university student, and I needed money, like most university students. And FedEx was actually starting a weekend shift. And boy, talk about a great place for university students to land. And they would actually pay for our tuition, which was even better. And I unloaded trucks on the weekend, and I thought that was going to be where I was going to go. I was going to eventually leave after I graduated, but no, I just sort of fell in love with the place and worked. Over these 26 years, I have worked in every type of operation there is. I have done courier stations, ramps, the hub. I've done IT. I've done engineering integration. I've done all those things. And a couple years ago, one of my cohorts that I'd worked with on a project before had come over to this group, and they were like, hey, we're really going to expand this group. We really need more folks that understand operations, understand technology. I know you've never done robotics. And I'm like, hey, stop right there. I'm in. you had me at robots. I'm in. And that's how I got started. I sort of just asked, and I wanted to be on the job. And I got in over here actually and got quickly promoted to the senior advisor position. And this is where I'm at now. And I love every minute of it. I mean, I would not trade this for anything. This is, I mean, as I said, I've been with the company 26 years. I will gladly stay here for 26 more years if I get to keep doing what I'm doing.
And I think it's very interesting to realize, and I think a lot of us maybe take this for granted if you don't kind of take a moment and think about I would say, the duration and the speed at which we can get our packages, what it truly takes in the back. And obviously, we're going to get into some of these technologies in just a second, but I think it's important to maybe realize through, what you've done at FedEx, how technologically enabled the process really is, and how, like, to some degree, it's similar to what you'd see in manufacturing, where a lot of our listeners are probably more familiar with, but it's very similar to those environments in terms of requiring robotics, requiring control systems. And if you want to, I guess, like, if you'd like to elaborate, I'd be very curious about hearing, maybe some of the contrasts, but also maybe some of the challenges, like what kind of technologies are, I would say, more emphasized in your world versus maybe a traditional, like, chemical plant, for as an example.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue when it comes to automation and robotics in the logistics industry versus the manufacturing, and sorry about that, guys. We do have our lights on a timer, so let me just
Not a problem.
get that back on. So hey, we're saving energy. But the issue is the diversity that we have to deal with. If you're in a factory and you're making the same kind of parts, you can build around those parts, even if you have even couple of parts. Every night, I'm dealing with 2, 3, 4 million different types of packages. And how do we build automation and robotics that can handle all of them? That's my team's challenge. And that's what we're always trying to find a solution for. And we have those solutions in some very key places. As AI and vision has gotten better to be able to deal with those diversities, as mobile robots like these guys can deal with the complexities of our warehouses and operations where we just put stuff everywhere sometimes. I mean, right now they're running around in a very nice, clean, open environment. But this is part of what we do here test-wise. If I need to fill this place with nothing but pallets and stacks, I could do that and very quickly. Actually, you can see some of our stuff in the back. And that's our challenge right now is how do we deal with the diversity of all these packages? I mean, everyone probably today got some kind of package somewhere. I mean, and the next day you're going to get another package. So it's how do I always be able to deliver quickly to you using the same automation to deliver those different packages each time? I think that's one of our biggest challenges. Now, where we're seeing big gains that 10 years ago we could only dream of, and now it's really waking up, is we're able to go beyond the barcode. For those that realize, FedEx was the first company to track packages. We created that whole kind of concept of tracking packages. So now it's how do you get more information? How do you maybe not need always to scan a barcode? How can you do that? And this is where we're starting to get into technology like Bluetooth, RFID technologies, and how do we apply those to it? I mean, I have one of our devices, and hard to see, but this little guy is a little Bluetooth transmitter, and like for every vaccine shipment, this guy went on them. And this is pinging nonstop. It's giving information to us. It's telling us a bunch of stuff. I could put an RFID tag on some of the pallets we're sending around the world, and I can know where those are at given time. So going beyond this barcode concept is now possible. And the amount of data now we're creating is amazing. We've launched a new company here at FedEx called FedEx DataWorks. And they are there to create all the new tools we're going to use to create off of this data that not only helps us get packages to our customers faster, but we can even provide that information to our customers so they can actually start seeing all their packages, their supply chain forming on their dashboard, and they can see everything at one time and start seeing, do I have issues? Do I need to adjust things? And that was not possible until we got all this rich data coming into us now.
And I think, Aaron, it's important, if I may add on to that, for those who are maybe not familiar with, let's say you mentioned, the vaccine compliance, there's also regulatory bodies that require for you to, again, like send the temperature readings as like the base condition to make sure that everything's okay, right? So it's not that you're just collecting the position of the packages, but also I guess what's going on with the contents and making sure that they get reliably to the customer. But I think it's very interesting, and one of the things that we talked about yesterday that I was very impressed by is that you can react to weather data, right? So you can pull that information from an external or a third-party source, I would assume, and then be able to reroute your packages. And I would say that's probably one of the algorithms that is already figured out how to get that done, but it's still a very impressive, I would say, like feat to make sure that the package gets more optimally delivered to the end user.
Yeah, I mean, actually, great question, Vlad. I mean, we here just here in the United States, we have pretty much 5 what's considered the major hubs of the U.S. for FedEx. Memphis, where I'm at, is the main hub. It is the mother one. Indianapolis is our next largest hub. Dallas is our next hub in the middle of the country. And then we have Greensboro on the East Coast, and then we have Oakland on the West Coast. And between those, I mean, everyone, I'm pretty sure, is just seeing this on a map of how we've sort of triangulated the country. But if there is a hiccup, weather-wise, someone in there, the other hubs now can adjust. And we can reroute, and we can go around storms, and we can do all this great stuff. We have a great meteorology department here in Memphis. There's some great YouTube videos out there of showing some of the tools our meteorology department has. And I'm quite frankly, there are weathermen across the country that are jealous of just some of the tools our guys have. But We touch 99% of the world economy. We are watching the entire planet all the time because with plus 600 plus planes, gosh, 30,000 plus trailers out there, we got a lot of assets to watch and manage. And because now we can put trackers on not even the packages, but even everything else we have, we can manage all this and really deliver for our customers. And sometimes it does look weird of, okay, why did a package go through Indy or why did it go through Dallas and not through this? Because maybe we just saw there was an extra opportunity or something else we had to reroute around. And with all that data, we were able to do that.
I've certainly had those questions in the past, but now that you've explained it, I always assume that it's optimized on some metrics, but it's great to see that, there's a lot of thought that has been put into those routes, and it's not just, the shortest path available. So it's a really interesting, I guess, approach that I would not have immediately thought was already implemented. What about, one thing that you've mentioned is the collection of data, right? So with all these trackers, with all the sensors, even the AGVs, the tags, the RFIDs, the barcodes, you're collecting a lot of data. I was wondering, like, what are your thoughts, on some of the challenges there, maybe how you're working through solving those data challenges, and what are you seeing, like, coming up? Maybe if you can share some of that information.
I mean, there's a lot of challenges out there. I can't talk about all of them, but there's the biggest thing is like getting consistent data is always a big thing of not having blind spots in the network. Making sure we're getting correct data to begin with. I mean, that's one thing our customers, we work with our customers a lot on, because if we're providing rich data sets back to our customers, this starts opening the doors of how we could plug into their whole supply chain from the moment a part's made all the way to its delivery. And if we have good data all the way across that becomes gold for our customers, because we'll fill in our little section for them. But the whole thing is that they're not providing good data on their front end for their own personal use. Our data feedbacks might not pay off for them because they're not doing it. So this is always something we always stress with customers is the whole concept of GIGO is real. Garbage in, garbage out. And we can provide some great data sets, but if there's not a way for us to provide that based off of your already existing data sets, we're not painting a good picture for you as a customer. So that's one thing I think we really want to work with everyone on is let's make sure we're all in agreement on what needs to be in those data sets and provide good, accurate data. Because I think for manufacturers, especially right now, I think they said supply chain now is a banned word for 2022 because it's gotten used so much.
Yep.
But there's something about you're seeing the companies that had good data and were able to manage their supply chains through this storm and ongoing storm for right now. You're seeing them not having those issues because they really invested in their data architecture. They invested in able to have that good data, and then we add our component. Oh, there's that good section now and then as we deliver, they still have rich data sets on the other side to keep everything in balance. So this is one thing I think all of us. This is just not a us issue. This is an everybody issue of just we got to make sure we're building real good data sets. We know what we want to get data on, and we go after it.
Yeah, no, I certainly, would agree with you. I think especially nowadays it's a big challenge, and I think a lot of companies are tackling it. I don't think that it has been completely solved because of the complexities in the field, some of which like you've described very well. But I think there's still a lot to improve on. And one question we actually got from Aaron. So he's asking about what about security and privacy, and I think, maybe there's like, and this is just my thought, feel free to elaborate on this, but there's two segments, right? For FedEx, for example, you can have your internal data where again, you're tracking some of your metrics on how the performance is, but then there's also customer data that you're probably managing through like your websites, your like infrastructure through which packages are going through. So I'm wondering your thoughts on what are some of the challenges there, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, excellent question, Aaron. Security is top of mind all the time. Our FedEx Services InfoSec team, top notch. They are always on. They're always looking at this, and there is a lot of emphasis on that side. Actually, one thing I'm proud of as a Memphian and a graduate of the University of Memphis is the University of Memphis is actually one of the top cybersecurity programs in the country. And I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't that they're right here with FedEx. It just shows you how serious we take those issues. Privacy, again, very think we have a lot. Yes, we have a lot of customer data, and we have to protect that. And even though there's a lot of regulations around there, I mean, actually, gosh, we probably could spend a whole podcast on EU regulations and how it impacts the United States, even though we're not an EU country. We have to keep those in mind because we are a global company. Of privacy, there's regulations, but it's just good business. You take care of your customers' stuff. You don't expose your customer to those kind of things. That's just good business practice.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I think it's concerning. Well, I mean, security is a concerning topic or a good conversation topic even from last year, right? Where we saw multiple breaches, so I think it's important to have the right people and the right teams in place to make sure we solve these issues. Dave, I want to maybe give you a moment to yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Well, just real quick, I would say to the audience members, if you know good cybersecurity guys that can come on this show.
Okay.
I think we just got you guys your next show.
Dave, I wanted to give you an opportunity maybe to ask a question. You're breaking up just a little bit.
Absolutely. So sorry about that. Aaron, so I liked your comment at the very beginning when you were getting ready to come on board with the R&D group, and you said something to the effect of they had you at robots. I think you had all of us also at robots. But beyond robots, can you tell us a little bit more of kind of the nuts and bolts, whether it's high-speed conveyors? How do you move as many packages as you guys have to move every day, day in, day out, and make sure to kind of keep your uptime and then also allow us to understand where they are everywhere in the world, to take that data element and to share it to maybe 1 billion people every day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have a big network between FedEx Express, which is my side, is the airline side of FedEx, and FedEx Ground, FedEx Freight. Each one of these companies is dealing with a ton of packages, palletized freight, all those kind of things. So it is, how do we automate as much of that process as possible? High-speed belts, great, and we deploy them nonstop. Actually, the Memphis Hub has miles and miles and miles. I've lost track of how many miles, but the whole thing is let's just say if we drove it, it would take over an hour. I know that. If we had to drive every belt, it would take forever, even at full speed. But it is now, again, that diversity problem of how do you build automation that can deal with all the diversity of all our packages? Oops. I'm going to keep talking, and it sounds like we have a little bit of a video problem.
We can still hear you.
There. Okay. But it's just how do we build this up? Because we have to go fast. Our customers, I mean, FedEx is a verb. I mean, when you think about that, I mean, we are a verb because of what we are capable of doing, and we don't take that lightly at all. And so, yeah, high-speed belts, trackability beyond the barcode of actually letting the packages tell us where they're at all times. Robotics, and how do we mix all this together to build the network out further as we expand greenfield sites? It's easy to put these technologies in, but also how do we go back to our existing infrastructures and put in robotics and automation, but without our customers missing a beat. They don't even notice we're doing it, but we're still upgrading our older buildings as well. And that's a challenge. But the good thing is as we get these data sets and we start seeing the mix and we can start seeing where things are going and also working with our customers. That's actually one of the biggest things. A lot of folks, we actually have a packaging lab. It's my fellow crazy scientists, and all they work on are packaging and working with customers of we need to fix this. This is not going to work for you. You're shipping X, and that means you probably need a box that can accommodate that over someone else's. And working with those customers and working with and showing them how the packaging can actually help them of investing in a good packaging is key. If you're sending breakable stuff, you want good packaging. And it's, that team's sole job is actually working with those customers to design better packaging. And again, none of that was possible without data of showing us, okay, yeah, we got some issues here, but let's work together. Let's fix this. And we've come up with some great stuff. I mean, we've shown off some of these new packaging designs we've come up with our customers. And they're great for the product inside, but also think of it now when you get a package, is your package almost branding in a way for your business? That's actually the next big thing that we're starting to see is actually using the packaging as almost a marketing tool. But what's that marketing stuff do to our vision systems? What does it throw off a camera where it can't tell what that is? We've gotten some interesting ones. I didn't know hot pink glitter packaging existed until I started seeing 500 of those packages coming down the line. It's like, whoa, that's interesting. Definitely got my attention. But then I could also see, wait, we're going to have a problem with some of the vision systems if we don't look at this right now.
Yeah, and I think this ties back to your previous point where you said how much variability there is, in your business, right? And I think you've explained maybe the sizes of the packages, and I think that's something that we can anticipate or imagine. But glitter on a package or different colors, and again, you can have plastic that's slightly more reflective than your standard cardboard, and that throws off your entire like barcode scanning, or at least like the most basic functionalities of your vision systems. And that's probably a lot more difficult to imagine again than different sizes. And I think it's interesting that you say it, because I think again maybe the end users would care a lot more about their design of the package and how it gets to the customer, but it's also important to take care of some of these intermediary steps that allow it to get there as fast as they do without like causing trouble, right? Well, no, Dave, I think that
Yep.
was a really good question.
Yeah, and the whole thing is our biggest thing also, and I just to close out on this question is that the more human touches of a package we can eliminate through automation. That's one of the things my team focuses on a lot, is because every time a human has to touch it, that's a human that can't do something else for us. So as we can eliminate those touch points across the network, that becomes even more valuable, because that means our team members can go focus on other things that automation or robotics and other things just can't. It's still those kind of tasks that just require a human brain to figure out, like address correction. You'd be surprised how many times people put the wrong address on a package, and we have to figure it out and fix it.
Aaron, we have a question based on that final answer. So from Eric. Eric is asking, and I don't know how much you can elaborate on this specifically. So he's asking, question for Aaron: what causes the most amount of downtime at the main hubs, and how is that overcome? So I'm also, I guess, curious. Like I said, I don't know if you can give us a very specific answer, but I'm curious to know.
Well, I mean, one of our biggest, had a bunch of lights go out. One sec. But one of the things I would say is that besides weather, weather we can't control, but our meteorology department does a great job of trying to pre-plan, and we have some great teams. As the weather gets bad, we can actually do some things. It snowed this past weekend here in Memphis. The snow teams went out there, cleared everything. That's act of God kind of stuff. But sometimes we just have stuff break. And when you're in a huge facility, a key belt breaking is going to cause some problems. What is great though is we have IoT on all our belts. We do tons of preventive maintenance, and we also have pretty much a fire team ready to go. If something breaks, boom. And our technicians are some of the best in the world, and they can swap out those belts, get us up and going. But the biggest thing is again, going back to data, is we have all this IoT now on our belts, and we're like, ooh, that rotor's not turning at the same speed. Let's check that rotor during the off time. And yeah, our guys in between sorts are checking belts, they're pulling belts, they're doing, and sometimes I look at it and say, I'm not seeing anything wrong with it. Oh, we got an alert, or this one's not running like what it should. Let's just swap it out so we don't have a problem. Again, but that was not possible until we got all this great data, IoT, all this stuff, and it's really paying off now for us.
Yeah, and I mean, I can only imagine that there's going to be more and more technology that allows us to, again, like track that more precisely and allow us to give, I guess, speed is always the name of the game, right? So the earlier you can diagnose some of these problems, I would imagine you probably track like tension, vibration on the belts, and you're probably looking at the motors as well. So I think that's a very interesting. Again, I think not knowing how the hubs operate, I would imagine you have maybe some shutdowns here and there that you would do maintenance on while the rest of the area operates, because you probably cannot interrupt the entire facility, to do your maintenance. So it's, I'm sure, quite an operation, and they have to do it very quickly and get it back up to speed in order to continue
Yep.
processing. No, I think that's a good, really good question. Wanted to, while Dave comes back, talk a little more. So we had, some conversations about the hubs, but there's more than just the hubs about FedEx. You mentioned, there's the airplane. So obviously that's also collecting data, but there's some interesting developments that we talked about yesterday. So the fuel you're using, you're getting, it's bio, like degradable. It's from bio waste, right? Like you're doing some innovation there as well.
Yeah, we've been working with several companies. Boeing is one of our big partners in all this, and we've been working on algae-based biofuels. And we actually have a demonstrator aircraft that is a test plane that Boeing and us use to test these kind of things. And there's a lot of promise. And we have a hard commitment here at FedEx to be carbon neutral by 2040. We earlier this, trying to remember if it happened technically last year or this year, but we did launch our first batch of electric delivery vans, and we have many of more of those coming online. And we are looking at every type of way we can get to that goal in 2040 of being carbon neutral. Biofuels is a great one that we're seeing some real promise in right now. But as I said, Boeing is a great partner on that, and we're doing that work with them. And how much more of how can we electrify the fleet more? These little guys are electric, so it is. We know we are a big consumer of energy. It takes a lot of energy to deliver packages. Takes a lot of energy to run a worldwide network like we do. But we can do it right. We can do it green. And we are very much working on that. It's not just my team, it's several teams here at FedEx that are addressing those things. And I really am looking forward to where we eventually end up on all that stuff. But it's a lot of promise.
Can you comment anything about drones and autonomous vehicles maybe on the streets? I'm wondering if there's any R&D done in those directions. Personal curiosity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, actually, for those that were here in Memphis for the AMR conference that got to come out to our facility, actually saw some of our drone work. We actually have a drone launch station just outside our building, and because again, we're at an R&D test site. And a lot of folks actually, I think our buddy like Jake Hall, Sluki, I think they posted a lot of photos during that show. And so, yeah, we actually have a program here in Memphis, and Memphis is like the only airport that the FAA allows drone testing to be done so close to the airport. And it's because of trusted partners of just not FedEx. We have a bunch of partners here in Memphis working on that. The University of Memphis and the Airport Authority works with us on this. But we're doing a lot of work in drones, and it's also getting a little bit beyond just package delivery. Package delivery is just one use case that drones can do. We've done perimeter checks. We've done parts delivery for our aircraft maintenance guys, which has been a very interesting test. And again, could not have been done unless the FAA gave us permission here in Memphis to do that. Of actually, a technician is at an aircraft prepping it for its launch, realizes, oh, I need a new part. And before he'd jump in his truck and he'd drive all the way across the field, get the part, drive all the way back across the field to then fix it. Well, we actually started doing delivery of those parts by drone at the airport. There's some great videos out there about that. And that was a great teaching tool for the FAA because, again, they're trying to learn how do we use drones responsibly? What are these use cases? So that was one. We've done aircraft inspections with drones. A lot of airlines are starting to do that because it is hard to get someone up on a boom to look at the top of the aircraft fully to make that inspection. All of us have been to the airport where we've been seeing the pilots like doing their walk around as we're waiting to get on. We can see the pilots walking around. Well, they're looking up, they're checking things, but can they really see the top of the aircraft? Make sure there's nothing wrong up there. Drones have a huge opportunity to address that as well. So it's interesting that everyone likes to focus when they talk about drones with FedEx or UPS or Amazon of we're doing package delivery. And that's a great use case. But it's all these other cool things we're starting to learn of how we can use them in our operations where they're not doing package delivery, but they're doing something else. They're a flying robot for us of, before I'd have to put a guy on a boom, lift the boom, and he'd look over the aircraft, then he'd come down. Well, shoot, just once the drone scan, done. That turns the aircraft faster for us. And that just gets the customer the package faster. So it all feeds into itself.
Oh, I love it. I think it's a very good use case that I would not have thought of, but obviously FedEx has such a fleet and probably a need to do those examinations on a very regular basis that it absolutely makes sense once you've described it. That's phenomenal, Aaron. One question we got again from Aaron that again maybe on this slight tangent of future technologies. The question is, what's the opportunity for blockchain at FedEx? Are you testing things? Are you maybe having some thoughts about it? Anything like concrete come out of it yet?
I can't talk fully on it, but we are very active. Actually, FedEx was one of the first ones to join the Blockchain Alliance, the Blockchain Transportation Alliance. Make sure I said that correctly. And there's a great team of FedExers that are working on that side. They do bring us my team in as needed on that kind of stuff. So I really don't want to do them a disservice, but I will say FedEx is very active in blockchain because of everything else we're working on. It's just not my team.
And that's really great to hear. I think that's like me and Dave have been talking about that a lot. The importance, I would say, to try some of these emerging technologies without necessarily fully committing to the final solution, but seeing how it can be applied to some of your use cases, right? So again, like going back to the drones, but also tying in like blockchain, I think it's important to like figure out what it could be used for. And again, I'm sure we'll hear some news once it is deployed by your teams and obviously available to the public. But I'm curious to see what's gonna happen on that end. But Dave, I wanted to once again pull you back in and see if you had any questions for Aaron.
Well, Vlad, to quote you, I have so many questions.
Perfect.
But no, Aaron. I think all of it is amazing. I think it's exciting. I'm over here sitting thinking to myself, man, listen to all of the amazing things that Aaron is doing. Yeah, like there are just so many ways we can go. So I guess kind of the question I want to ask you before we kind of delve into the robotics side is, you and the team at FedEx, at least the R&D side, seem to be, 5, 10, 15 years ahead of many manufacturing companies. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions for them outside of smart sensors, collect more data, use the data, that you would suggest as a starting point?
The biggest thing I've always tried to stress to small and medium companies is, if you're going to automate, I mean, go and find that real quick win. Find that thing that you can automate right now with existing technologies, and do it. Just get it done. And case in point, one of the things that like the logistics industry really went after early was palletization. I mean, palletization is everyone's doing it. Okay, everyone's building up pallets out of their factories, out of their warehouses. So that technology exists. You can get a palletization robot from any company. I don't care if it's Fanuc, ABB, Yaskawa, Nachi, UR, list goes on and on. You can do that. And there are plenty of providers that can help you get started right away on that kind of stuff. You don't need to be a programmer right now with some of the great stuff that are coming out of some of these no-code companies like Ready Robotics up in Columbus, Ohio, and so many others. I mean, actually, we're starting to see even the big players like ABB and Yaskawa and others get into that kind of thing. So it's out there, and really just do some research, but then start calling some folks. Of everyone's out there online. You can find these companies. I mean, just type in, I need a palletizing robot. I bet you will get a bunch of companies that can do that for you right now. So find those low-hanging fruit use cases, and trust me, you can do it. And I know Vlad and Dave, we're going to sort of talk about workforce development a little bit later, but just to maybe sort of start jumping into that realm, is we have seen that if for those companies that actually take the risk and go full in and are willing to be trained on this technology, you can do it. Okay, we have taken like the Ready platform, Yaskawa Arms, UR Arms, Ready Robotics, and been able to take folks that have had zero training and taken them to lights out production on CNC machines in 10 days. You can do that less on palletization. But the whole thing is, you got to start. You got to just get started. And I say this from the deepest of my heart for everyone. You have a use case. You might not think of it, but you have a task that you can automate right now in your factory. I have not been to a factory yet that I have not seen 2 or 3 tasks or use cases that I can automate right now with existing equipment. But it's just get started. I mean, it's scary, but the whole thing is one of the things I really love about the robotics and automation industry is everyone is so nice. Everyone's right there to help you. But unless you approach them and say, hey, I want to solve this, you're not going to get anywhere. So again, just like how I got on this robotics team of just saying, I'm in, I want to do it. You as a small, medium manufacturer or small or medium warehouse company, just get started. Just find that task and go after it.
Man, that is exciting. I absolutely want to talk more about that. We're going to dive into a whole workforce development theme or section right now. But first, we have to thank some people. So, Vlad, will you play us that noise, and then we can thank Opto22. Awesome. Perfect. So we want to thank Opto. Thank you, Vlad. So we want to thank Opto22 for sponsoring this theme and all of their support. For over 45 years, OEMs, machine builders, systems integrators, and IT and operations personnel have looked to Opto22 for innovative automation products at an affordable price. Heard of OPC? Opto22 co-wrote the spec as one of the founding members. Ether.io, that was them also. How about PACs? Them again. Today, Opto22 designs and manufactures industrial control and IoT products like Groove Epic and Groove Rio that bridge the gap between IT and OT, following the core philosophy of open standards-based technology. And if you are not quite pumped up enough listening to our conversation so far with Aaron, I suggest going back to episode 43, listening to the conversation that we had with Benson, talking about all of these technologies. I think it is, they go very well together, Aaron, because Benson, we were kind of talking about the history and the evolution and what I was defining as like the bleeding edge. And the conversation we're having is where most people hope to be in 10 years, right? And so I think that that's awesome. And again, there are just robots behind you at the very moment. So this is all very exciting. And I want to talk about workforce development and kind of career advice and kind of all of those things. And so I'm going to ask you to talk about eCami, which I know is an organization that you're involved in. And then I'm going to let Vlad pepper you with a bunch of career advice and workforce development questions.
Okay. Yeah, eCami, the Eastern Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute is in Paintsville, Kentucky, about a 2-hour drive south of Lexington. It is very much in a very rural part of the United States. It is coal country, and we all know where coal currently is and where it's going. So eCami is very much working on retraining that population of former coal miners and just the existing population as well on advanced manufacturing and robotics. And they have a great track record. Actually, they're about to graduate. I think their 12th class this coming week. It'll be about 15 individuals, and all of them have job offers. Actually, all of them have multiple job offers already. Wow. And it's amazing what they've done. They do Haas CNC machine training, but they start those guys actually on the same stuff that many of us. I'm already having flashbacks to the metal shop and wood shop, but they start them on those tools and to get them up to speed, and then they start getting on to the bigger machines, and then they get on to the robotics. And it is amazing what they're doing. As I said, we did a work with them with Ready Robotics, and those guys went through that training, and in 10 days they were doing lights out production, which is an amazing thing. Of a lot of these guys are former coal miners, 20, 30, 40 years for some of them, and they lost their job. They're going through this program. They have never seen a robot in their life. They've never seen a CNC machine in their life. And now they are training, and they're doing lights out production at the end. So that's why from earlier, I'm saying it can be done, guys. It can be done. You just got to put yourself out there and do it. And that's what those guys did. They like, I want to be able to do this. They are the most go-getter guys ever. I mean, it takes something I will never have. I will never be able to go down in a coal mine. I know I would never survive down there. And these guys live that life day in and day out. And now, because of what's happening with the coal industry, they've had to pivot, which is a brave thing to do after you've been doing the same thing for 20, 30, 40 years. And they just pick it up. It's amazing how fast they pick this up, because actually there's a lot of stuff you learn down in that mine that applies to advanced manufacturing and robotics. Actually, one of the first times I went up there and we started talking about programming mobile robots, a lot of the guy says, man, these maps look so familiar. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he says, these look like our coal mining maps. And the next day they actually brought in some of their maps and we laid them down, and they're the same grid patterns that you see in mobile. I mean, so the whole thing is these guys already understand mapping and how that all is going to operate. And so when they got put in front of the mobiles, they picked it up in no time. They were it's like, I'm out. I mean, you guys got this. I don't need to be doing this, because they took those older skills and applied it to this. And I think that's one of the amazing things a lot of people don't realize is just because you haven't done something doesn't mean that you haven't done something in the past that you can now pivot and relate to. And I think that's one of the big things I really want to stress to employers out there is just we don't have time for, you need to get 5 years of experience before you get this starter job. Those days are all over. But it's also now looking at, okay, what did you work on in the past that might actually point to the career that you could go to? And I think we talk about data a lot. I think that's actually going to be the next thing, is actually taking a lot of this data about people's work histories and sort of projecting, wow, you could actually be over in this industry because of what you did, or you could be over in this industry as you could do. There was a great study recently done by a team at Microsoft that found the more foreign languages you know, the better programmer or developer you can be, potentially. And I think that's going to be a real interesting thing, because we're short programmers and developers. So if that study is really correct, and I think that's what they're trying to do right now over at Microsoft, is actually sort of prove this out. And from my understanding, is they're doing it internally on themselves, is they're actually going through all their employees and finding who has all the language skills and say, hey, have you ever thought about being a developer? And they're like, no. And they're doing those tests now, and we're hearing some good results. So that could be a big thing down the road, is what are those skill sets from what might be a totally unrelated field or industry that you could actually use to pivot them to a new career as needed.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. I'm glad you brought up the study like that. But again, I'm curious to see what kind of other parallels are going to be drawn. Again, based on different industries. I think, I can't quote a specific study, but I think they're realizing more and more that, again, diversity is a factor on certain teams, right? It becomes a more efficient process as you bring people with different backgrounds per se. So I think it's going to be very interesting what they're going to find. And going back to the transition through like eCammy from coal mines, I think it's interesting that you could find again a parallel into manufacturing or distribution centers, CNC work, robotics. That's really awesome. And so what's the, just to confirm, like, are you involved in that? Are you part of a committee there, or is FedEx a sponsor? What's your involvement on that initiative?
I mean, I think my title is technical advisor.
Okay.
I work with the guys. I work with Kathy Walker, who started it, Barbie Busey, who's the director, and I really just advise of what they need to look at next. What are some of the new technologies that they might want to explore? I definitely point a lot of folks in the industry to them, because one of the things that's amazing about these guys is how fast they pick up things. And if you're a robotics firm, or actually if you're in manufacturing robotics and you're not calling up eCammy, if you have openings, you're missing out, plain and simple. Because as I said, these guys, this next class is about to graduate, and they have multiple offers on the table, and it's because these guys are high quality, and employers keep coming back. They have one employer, and I can't out them, but they're a great company. They are a household name, but they started getting students from the previous class, and they were just blown away by the quality. So these guys are amazing. These guys are way ahead of anybody else we get off the street or from even some of the other academic institutions. And they're already back. They were back when this next class started up that's about to graduate. 2 weeks in, they were like, how many can we have? I mean, so it's like, if you're not in there trying to get these guys, you're missing out. They get hired right away, and they get promoted so quickly when they get hired. It is mind-boggling just how amazing the work at eCammy is going on. And I really stress that if you are within a day's drive of Paintsville, Kentucky, you should be going there to visit and just see what they're doing. And either take that back to your community, or make them a permanent stop of how are you going to hire these guys. Ultimately, the goal of eCammy though is to show manufacturers and others that they can open businesses in that part of Kentucky, and the workforce is there. That's the ultimate goal, because that part of the country really needs that. Okay, the industry that they've lived off of is dying. Coal industry is going away. We know that. The writing's on the wall. But there is so much infrastructure that was built in that part of the country to support that. Getting trucks in and out to bring you your resources, not a problem. Plenty of infrastructure. Actually, looking at the map of how centralized they are, of how quickly they can hit Nashville, Cincinnati, the Carolinas from that central location, really makes them an ideal place for a manufacturing location. And they have plenty of land. And it's also some of the most gorgeous part of the country ever out there. So really, the ultimate goal is to get somebody to locate there. They're going to have great employees right out of the gate, and they could definitely make that part of the country a great place again.
Yeah, and I think it's a great initiative. I've posted the link on LinkedIn and our channel on YouTube. And if you're listening to the recording of this, there's going to be a link in the footnotes if you want to take a look. Again, it looks like they have, based on your comments, they have students that will be recruited, right? So if you're interested on joining the program, or if you're an employer and want to hire some of the students going through the program, there's an opportunity there as well. But no, I think it's really great, and to bring this back to the conversation that we had with Tim last week, he's trying to get a lot more people, obviously a slightly different mission, but ultimately trying to get a younger generation of high school students interested in manufacturing, automation, robotics. So I think it's very important to keep bringing these, I would say, like smaller initiatives that are maybe not entirely like university programs and a 3 to 5 year commitment, but something that just gives people a taste of something that they otherwise wouldn't have seen, right? Because we all experience traditional software, I think, by using computers, playing with our phones, iPads, what have you. But manufacturing, I think, is certainly underrepresented in many of these spaces. So I think this is a great initiative. And again, if it's capable of getting people to transition from an industry that is no longer striving, I think it's an excellent bonus. But Aaron, I wanted to maybe ask you in general, what do you see in terms of workforce at FedEx? Are you looking in a general sense, right? Like not currently open positions, but are you looking for more data scientists? Are you seeing an interest in like electrical engineers? Are you seeing again, probably like mechanical engineers are also a big part of the team? Like, what are your thoughts on, maybe the next decade on how things are progressing?
Yeah, real good question, Vlad. We hire a lot. I mean, we have numerous diverse sets of folks that we have to hire. I would say on the robotics side, one of the exciting things I'm actually working on with some of the local schools here is the development of a pretty much a beginner's robotic team leader, robotic wrangler, whatever you want to call it, but a person that's very much a first point of contact. They get all the robots going in the morning or before the shift. They're monitoring them. They're very much, and then at the end of the shift, they're shutting everything down. They're making sure everything's good for the next group. That doesn't sound like much, but that's a very important role, and you've got to have some technical knowledge at least to get through that point. It can still be a starter position in a way, but also if we have more of those folks being trained on just the basics of robotics at their high schools, in a program like eCammy or all that, or even associate's degree, more the merrier. And then from there, I think those guys will then also want to grow and go into engineering if they want to. Actually, one of the eCammy grads from a previous class he's about to start engineering school because he's done such a great job at his employer's going to pay to send him to engineering school.
Really? Okay.
And he's all on board. And one thing I'm very also proud of FedEx on is I talked about, I was a university student when I started. They paid my way. And what's great is FedEx, for our frontline employees, actually, you can go online and do the online University of Memphis program and get your bachelor's degree if you want to, and FedEx will cover the cost of that. So I think education is actually going to be one of the new corporate benefits. You get your health benefits, you get your dental, all that. I think education is going to be like the next big one, and we're already seeing that. Starbucks has, if you go work for Starbucks, you can get your degree from, I believe, Arizona State. We saw Walmart enact they're going to pay for college. So I think that's going to be a next big thing. Amazon's doing the same thing, and we don't always see eye to eye, but I praise Amazon for doing that, because I think that we need to see more of that. Because when you come out of, when I came out of high school, I thought I don't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to go into the food industry, and learned that real fast. No, I don't think I want to make a career of that. But the whole thing is lifelong learning is going to be a thing. I am always having to read about the next new technology. As I said, my team is the cutting edge. We're the tip of the spear. So we're always getting new technologies. And don't think I'm spending half my weekends with a training manual about this thick on some new technology of just me trying to figure out what it is, what it's doing. I'm always reading about AI, blockchain, of what's going on, how do I tap this? But it's just, education is going to be the real big key going forward of how do we do that? How do we make that accessible to more folks? And how do we make it where you're not going to be sitting in a class for 2 to 4 years to get to your final training thing? I have my bachelor's degree, I have my master's degree. Quite frankly, I probably only use 2% of that now. They're pieces of paper now to me because they're so old. My parents were doctors. I remember growing up, them telling me 8-10 years out of medical school, you're already, everything you learned in medical school is old. And that was a long time ago. I'm pretty sure that's shrunk even more now with advances in medical technology. But I think that's one of the big things I'm really getting focused on more, and why eCammy actually sort of drew me to, because I started thinking about this, and eCammy got on my radar, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go learn from these guys how they did it. Of how do you take a coal miner with zero experience and in 16 to 20 weeks turn them into a advanced manufacturing robotics superstar? Because that's what they did. So it's, okay, how do we do that? How do we consolidate that training down where we're cranking out folks fast? Because as the labor pool continues to shrink, I think that's one of our biggest things. So, and it's just not on my side. It is on the InfoSec side. It's on the development side. Do you need a 4-year college degree to be a computer programmer?
I would argue no, but
a lot of
it's some folks believe you do.
So I think that this is going to be the next big challenge in workforce development is a college degree really needed for certain careers? What about certifications? Do they need to be nationalized certifications? eCammy does MEMS certifications. So those guys are coming out with about, I think, 8 to 10 MEMS certifications. And those are industry standards of like, okay, a MEMS test in Kentucky is the same as a MEMS test in California, as a MEMS test in Boston. So there gives the industry a little bit more of, oh, you are really trained. You know what you're doing. And that should hopefully speed up. Now, is that always the case? Yeah, we can make some arguments on that. But I think that's one of the big other things. And one of the things I would stress again, back to our small and medium guys out there that we've already said, you got to go automate. You also need to work with your local education institutions of what do you need for your local workforce. It is still amazing. I will post a LinkedIn post about some educational institution and what they're doing, and I'll get a message or an email from somebody 20 minutes down the street says, "This is the first time I've ever heard about this." Like, you're 20 minutes away and you're hearing it from me on LinkedIn, and I'm 1,000 miles away from you. And it's like, so you really need to engage your local education institutions, be those the high schools, community colleges, organizations like eCammy. You really need to get in there because they don't know what you need unless you tell them. And I think that's the big thing we need to get addressed next.
Yeah, and I think, to that point, I think employers, as you said, are realizing that and are more focused on practical skills rather than degrees. I think we've seen a number of companies kind of emphasize that skills are going to be like what they're looking for over just a piece of paper. And I share the same sentiment as you from my bachelor degree days that, an engineering program, although might be valuable in certain areas to know calculus level 3 and how to take integrals and derivatives, it's not extremely applicable, at least in the manufacturing setting that I have been programming controllers and robots, right? So it's I
Mm-hmm.
definitely can see where that comment is coming from. But no, I'm really curious. Again, I'm not sure that anyone has the
Yeah.
concrete answers, but I think things are certainly changing. I really like the emergence of these non-traditional paths that you can take. I think the more options people have to learn these skills, the better.
Yeah. And going back, I mean, are we hiring data scientists? Yes. I see so many posts internally for data scientists because, as I said, we're starting a new company, DataWorks. They're needing data scientists. One of the things I also want to comment on is my team. We're a very diverse group. My core team of 10 folks. Another challenge I'm going to throw out is half of my team is female. We are 50-50. And that's one thing I've been so proud of my team, and we've always been 50-50. And it sort of just happened. We're always looking for the best candidates. When one of us leaves or one of us retires, actually out of my group, you retire out of my group because no one wants to leave. But we're always getting that next wave of great talent. And yes, electrical, mechanical, data science. We have English majors. English majors are very good at this stuff. A lot of folks don't realize that. But the whole thing is one of the things my team has to do a lot of is what? Communication. We actually have to communicate to the end users of what we're developing, how are we going to do all this. So the engineering is great. I mean, we have great engineers, but two of my project managers are English majors, and I would not trade them for the world because of what they're capable of doing, of documentation, keeping up with us, keeping us straight. How are we communicating this? How are we going to present this to the final end user? All those things. I lean on them so much, and it's just because they understand human communication. And trust me, robotics and automation aren't going to go anywhere without the humans. Without the humans, robotics and automation don't mean nothing.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's it was the three pillars of digital transformation, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's people, process, technology, right? So it's an important piece that I think some very technically focused people often miss. That being able to communicate, and again, I think even more so in like an R&D facing role where you're always trying new things, you're trying to sort of push the technological level. So you're not just testing things in a bubble. You really need to be able to convey the different information, the different findings, and how it can impact the bottom line of the business, right? So that's very, very good point, Aaron. Dave, as I look at the time, we're already past the hour. I certainly
yes.
have, as I always say, several questions or many more questions. So we could probably go on for 3 hours, but how about we ask Aaron our three questions to be respectful of everybody's time?
Absolutely. So I would say thank you for that, Aaron. Thank you for that, Vlad. We to go ahead and finish up, always ask the same last questions. You've given us a ton of career advice, and you've told us you spend a lot of time reading technical and other manuals. Do you have a piece of content suggestion, whether it be a book or whether it be something else, where you go to learn your information, Aaron?
Oh man, and you Dave, you gave me this question ahead of time, and I kept thinking on it, thinking on it. And I will say that one of the books, I'm just going to recommend one book, and I'm getting my lights back on. Is a book that actually I own. I physically own the book, and I actually have the ebook, the tape version of it, because I still listen to it, even though it's, I think it was 2019 is when it came out, but it's called Surrounded by Idiots, and it is very much a behavioral book of understanding human behavior and how to effectively communicate within your business and also even in your personal life. The title does sort of shock you, but I'm not saying I don't work with idiots. I work with some of the smartest people in the world. But the whole thing is my job as a scientist, as an engineer, means nothing if I can't communicate to the next person of why am I doing this. My team, we're sending communications in every freaking direction there is, up the chain of this is what we're working on, this is why you're funding us, this is where we'll probably produce something for you, and we have to communicate that to a very diverse crowd of leaders, finance, accounting, all that. Flip side is I'm also communicating to the guy at the front of the line, and I have to be able to switch my style sometimes. And I think that's one of the biggest things I really think a lot of folks need to work on sometimes is you have to be able to deal with a lot of different people, different backgrounds, different cultures, different educational opportunities, all these things. And if you're not an effective communicator you're not going to succeed. Okay. And and sometimes I've actually come out of meetings and I'm like, man, I did not do a good job on that. I know what's going to happen. And so I'm always now going through my own communications of how do I do this better the next time. And that's one of the things and actually, again, I going back to eCammy, one of the great things that they also work on with the guys is their soft skills, their communications. They actually have a dinner with the class, and you have that full array of all the silverware of like, which one do you pick and all that. I was like, dang, I need to go through that myself sometimes. But they go through that. I mean, they work on those soft skills with the guys. And that is such a powerful thing. And so, again, not to berate this, but communications, your soft skills, how are you working on those to improve? Because trust me, they mean a lot. They mean a lot in where you're going to go next. So that's my one book I'm going to recommend. It's an interesting read. There's an audiobook version. If you don't do the audiobook, I think it's about a 10, 12-hour audiobook. But there's just some great little things in there, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
No, I think that is fantastic. And I would say that even after you've gone through and read the book and practiced those soft skills, as you mentioned, Aaron, every once in a while you come out of a meeting prepared to go in and have one type of conversation. You try to have that conversation and you come out and you realize you completely, botched it because the people that you were talking to were exactly the opposite of the conversation that you were planning to have. So I think that is a good piece of advice and a good book recommendation in and of itself. So last question for you, Aaron. So Typically, I ask who should reach out to you, but I should say if you want to learn about really cool workforce development places 20 miles down the road, you should connect with Aaron. Who else should connect with you, Aaron?
I welcome everyone. I definitely, LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me. I really try to answer it, but man, if I open up my LinkedIn, I probably have, I don't know how many numbers across the top right now. And I try and get through those as much as I can. I try and connect with as many folks as I can. But sometimes I just don't get to it. Sometimes you just need to ping me if you really want to talk to me, and I will do my best. But I am busy. But LinkedIn is always the best thing, and I try and be as responsible as possible. But be patient with me is all I can ask.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it, Aaron. Thank you so much for kind of getting everyone pumped up about, I think, everything. I know Vlad's ready to go run through a wall at the moment. Hopefully not the wall with all the PLCs behind him, but he's ready to go run through. No. Yeah, that's too expensive. Go run through another wall, Vlad. But no, thank you for that, Aaron. Thank you for coming on. As Vlad mentioned, I think we have many more hours of conversation, and so we will have to find a chance for you to come back on again to talk some more about what you're doing, kind of in all facets of work. Beyond that, if you guys like this, please go ahead and like the video, throw us a comment. You guys can now rate us not only on Apple Podcasts, but also Spotify and Audible. I think we're on Audible. I know we're on Spotify. And at episode 45, we are kind of semi-professional and have to ask people to subscribe and do things like that, Aaron. But no, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Opto22, for the sponsorship. And then we will see everyone live next week. And be sure to catch the podcast as they come out late Thursday mornings.
I was going to make one last comment. First, well, thank you, Aaron, so much for joining us today. But also, there have been a couple more questions. I didn't read all of them. Obviously, we ran out of time. But if you want, I did post Aaron's LinkedIn profile, so connect with him and send the questions directly to him. As he said, once he goes through the messages he's gotten, he's probably going to respond. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you, Aaron, once again. Thank you, Dave. And we'll see everybody next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.